Hi everyone, welcome to Healthfully Rooted Home. This is Kiri, and today I am going to take you through one of my favorite things that I do for Christmas every year. I make multiple different kinds of cookies, but I freeze them. So it's before Thanksgiving right now. I make them in advance and I freeze the dough and I bake them the day before whenever I need them. And so this is going to be a super fun video because I'm going to take you along the process, show you how I do it, how I organize everything, and it just creates for a super stress-free Christmas season, but also allows us to have a lot of really yummy treats during Christmas. So this video is in collaboration with another homemaker friend of mine. Her name is Adeline Zook, and she has a YouTube channel called Adeline Zook, and she preps all kinds of meals and she makes meal prep videos showing you how to do it. So she'll prep for like an entire month at a time, but she'll show you how to meal prep dinners and snacks and lunches and all kinds of meal prep videos. So I'm sure that a lot of you who watch my channel have also heard of her, but if not, please go check out Adeline's channel. She's just so authentic and her channel just brings me so much joy. Whenever I watch it, I'm like, that's such a good idea. And you know when you're watching a YouTube video and sometimes the things you learn from that video aren't even the main point of the video. It's like the littlest thing, like how they do the simplest task. I glean so much insight from Adeline and watching her cook. And so her channel is just so peaceful. I learn a lot from it and I get lots of really good meal ideas from her channel too. So I highly recommend checking Adeline out. And I'm going to play you this little video that she put together.
Hello, I am Adeline Zook. A lot of people call me Addie, and I am so excited to be teaming up with Kiri today. I thought that I would take a minute to introduce myself. I am a mom of 3. We homeschool, and with my husband Corey, we live in an old farmhouse and just love to do a lot of things the old-fashioned way. I do a lot of home preservation and just slow living, homemaking. I love to share a lot of things that my mom and my grandmothers have taught me, and I also love pulling in the idea of meal prepping and just being prepared so that you are equipped to be the best homemaker that you can be. When you're finished watching Kiri's video, you can pop over to my channel and I'm going to be showing you all just some ways that you can prep some holiday goodies for your freezer and just cut down on the stress of trying to get it all together for the holidays. Once you take a look at my channel, you will see that I am very big on meal prepping and just getting everything ready beforehand so that you can enjoy giving to your family and friends from your kitchen. Thanks again to Kiri for teaming up with me on this. I absolutely enjoy her content. I enjoy the encouragement she gives me through her faith and homemaking.
So that is Adeline, and she has a Christmas cookie meal prep video coming out too. So go check out her video. I have this memory of being at my grandma's house every Christmas, and she had a cookie table, and it was a table just lined with all kinds of cookies. I'm making 5 cookies. That is nothing in comparison to what my grandma had. She had all kinds of cookies and homemade candies and caramels, peanut butter balls, and then little bowls of like mixed nuts and things like that. And I'll never forget that. Just running past the table with my little cousins, grabbing a cookie on the way to wherever we were going. I just love making cookies for Christmas because that's what it reminds me of. What I like to do is make a list of my cookie lineup. And so I have my little homemaking binder here. I have my staple cookies that I make every year, but then I like to have a little bit of variation in there. So this year I'm making 5 cookies. 2 of them are cookies that I've never made before. But 3 of them are staples. So I'm making my grandma sugar cookies. That's the heirloom recipe that's been passed down, and I make that every year for a cookie decorating event that my family has held for years and years. I have now taken over that tradition, so I'll be making those. Pecan meltaways, it's my recipe, it's on the blog. I'll link all these cookie recipes below. Salted caramel shortbread, so this is one of the new ones. This looks amazing. It's not my recipe, it's a recipe that I found on a blog, and I am really looking forward to those ones. I can't remember what I actually named these. It's a recipe on my blog. I just call them my famous cookies because, I don't know, it's self-proclaimed fame, but people love them. So they're like these giant chocolate chip cookies, and I just put all kinds of good things in them, like pretzels and a couple different kinds of chocolate chips and toffee bits. So good. And then a peppermint brownie cookie. So that's also a new one, which I'm excited to try out. But the way that I decided which cookies I wanted had to do with, number one, taste and festivity. I wanted festive cookies. But number two is, how are they going to look inside of a cookie box? So I like to make cookie boxes or cookie trays for Christmas and or for gifts. And so I want a little variation in color and texture. And so those peppermint brownie ones are great because they have these beautiful crushed candy canes on top. But you just want a little variation. And so that is how I choose the cookie lineup. Then the next thing that I do is I make a list of all the ingredients I need. So the easy way to do this is go through like your most basic cookie recipe, or the one that has like the most ingredients, write out all the ingredients for that, and then every recipe after that, just make tally marks next to the common ingredients. So for example, butter. I have 6 tally marks here because I need 6 sticks of butter. It doesn't work exactly like that. You get the idea. Eggs, I have 4 tallies because I'm gonna need 4 eggs. Chocolate chips, bittersweet chocolate, I have 3 tallies. So you get the idea, but that just makes it really easy because then you know how much of it to buy. Because if you just bought like 1 pack of butter, that wouldn't be enough. Or like 1 thing of bittersweet chocolate, well, that wouldn't be enough because multiple recipes call for that. So that's the way I do it. Also, if you do this, you can save your shopping list and use it for the next year, which makes it super easy if you make all the same recipes every year. If you don't, then you're gonna wanna obviously make a new list every year. And now let's get into the cookies. So we just made the fudgy peppermint brownie cookies. I put them in this container. So you're gonna kind of vary how you wanna freeze each cookie depending on how you're gonna bake it, the consistency of the dough, things like that. So this fudgy brownie cookie is more of a like brownie batter consistency, maybe a little thicker than brownie batter. And then I label mine with the temperature I need to bake the cookies at, and then how long I need to bake them, and then any finishing touches. So for example, these fudgy peppermint brownie cookies are sprinkled with little crushed up peppermint candies. Okay, so I just made these salted chocolate chunk shortbread cookies. Wow, these look incredible. The dough came together perfectly. I followed the Allison Roman recipe. I took the dough out and I created logs on plastic wrap about 2.5 inches in diameter, and then wrapped those up in plastic wrap, put them in a plastic bag labeled, and put it in the freezer. Okay, so with my famous chocolate chip cookies, what I find best is that it's best if the dough itself is frozen. And so what I'm doing right now is I'm making the dough balls, and I'm going to line the cookie sheet with the dough balls, and then I'm going to flash freeze them. And flash freezing is when you, if you don't know, it's when you form whatever it is that you're making, in this case, cookie dough, and then you line it on a baking sheet separately, and then you freeze it, and then you put it all together in the bag or container that you're freezing it in. That way they freeze separately in the shape that they're supposed to be frozen in. So while I do this, I am going to tell you what makes these so good, or what I think makes them so good. So I combined a lot of different aspects of all my favorite recipes to make this recipe. So the first thing is that I use part all-purpose flour and part bread flour, and I think that creates just like the perfect texture where there's like a little bit of a crisp on the outside and then the most ooey gooey center. They're so good. Secondly, I use a lot of brown sugar and less white sugar, which is inverse of what a regular chocolate chip cookie would be. Third is I use a ton of chocolate chips, but then I also add pretzels, which creates this like really good contrast of sweet and salty. And then I also salt the tops with flaky sea salt. Next is I use toffee bits, so like Heath toffee bits, which that when they bake, it like the toffee melts inside and it is like caramely. It's so good. So then there's that. Actually, speaking of chocolate though, in this recipe, I had some extra of my like bittersweet baking chocolate. And so I just use that up in place of some of the chocolate chips. So you can really just throw whatever you have in here. I've made these with pecans too. That is really good. Still like the pretzels better because it gives that saltiness to it. Okay, and then in my original recipe, if you go to this recipe on my website, it calls for maple extract. I just used vanilla extract this time because it's all I had, but it is delicious with maple extract. It just creates such an interesting flavor. Also, I usually make these quite a bit bigger than this. This is maybe like a golf ball size. I will typically do like, I don't know, maybe like a golf ball and a half. They're giant cookies, but because I'm making them for a crowd and for cookie boxes, you don't want to put anything too big in a cookie box. And so, because it would just like take up the whole thing and you can't make it pretty. And so I do them a little smaller. Another thing that I do is I bake them on convection instead of just conventional bake. And I think that that adds to why the texture is so great. It like makes the outside perfectly crispy, and then again the inside is super gooey. What else do I do differently with these? Okay, and then just for baking cookies in general, here are some tips. First is you want to beat the butters and sugar together, like pulverize them. Like you want it to be so smooth and creamy. And then when you think you've beaten it enough, do it some more. You want it to be really smooth and creamy. And then after you do that, you want to scrape the sides down and then add your egg and vanilla extract, and then do it again and beat them again like crazy. This is before you add the flour and the baking powder and all of that, so it's not going to affect, like it's not going to make them too dense or anything like that. So just absolutely pulverize it before you add the flours and all the other ingredients. And I don't know, I've just found great success with that. Do make sure you scrape down the sides of the bowl. It seems like such an unnecessary step, and I am so the type of person that when I'm cooking, if I can eliminate a step, I will do it. And I have tried to eliminate the step of scraping down the sides because it just seems so tedious and unnecessary, because when you add the other ingredients, the sides will get scraped down anyways. It does make a difference. So I highly recommend doing that. Okay, so here are the cookies. What I'm going to do with these is, like I said, flash freeze them and then put them in a plastic bag and then freeze them. Okay, so we just made my grandma's sugar cookies, and it's such a basic recipe. Again, I'm gonna link it below. It's super basic, but we decorate it with all kinds of frosting and sprinkles and things like that. So if you just want like the perfect basic sugar cookie recipe, then that is the recipe that you'll want to follow. So the way that I froze that is I just rolled it into kind of a little log and then wrapped it in plastic wrap and then put it in the freezer. You want to divide sugar cookies up, especially sugar cookies that you're going to be working with. So like if you have to roll them out or roll them in balls or anything like that, you want to divide it into two blocks of dough, because when you're handling the dough so much and there's so much butter in a sugar cookie dough, it melts really easily and really quickly. So in order to keep the dough firm and easy to handle and work with, you're going to want to divide it into two. Keep one chilled while you're working with the other one, rolling it out, cutting it out into your cookies, things like that, and then grab the other one out and do the same thing. So you'll save yourself a lot of frustration if you do it that way and split it into two. And then also that makes it easy. So if you just want to make like one batch of cookies or like a smaller batch of cookies, then you can just pull out one of those dough logs and bake those. So those are in the freezer. We're gonna get started on pecan meltaways now. This is a super easy recipe too. I don't use the stand mixer for this one. I just use a bowl and my hands, and I like to wear gloves because it just makes it easier to work with the dough. But you just combine all the ingredients together except for the powdered sugar in a bowl, and then chill the dough, and then roll them into balls. And then that's when I flash freeze it. I could just freeze the ball of dough, but I want to go the extra step this time, flash freeze the little balls of dough so that it's even easier on the day that I want to bake. I don't have to handle the dough again, other than rolling the little balls of dough into the powdered sugar and then baking. That's all I want to do on baking day. So let's get to it. So there we go. I just freeze it in the bowl, or sorry, I don't freeze it in the bowl. I chill it in the bowl like this. And I have the plastic just kind of shaped around the dough. And I'm gonna pop this in the fridge and chill for 30 minutes. Then I'm gonna come and form the dough balls, flash freeze them, and then stick them in the freezer. Okay, it's baking day, and I just baked all the cookies. I didn't make the sugar cookies, but I made all the other ones. And so I'm gonna quickly go through what you do on baking day if you're making these recipes. It's so easy. The pecan meltaways are so easy. You pop them out of the freezer and let them defrost, honestly, just a few minutes. They don't need a lot of time to defrost. Pop them in the oven at 350 for about 10 minutes. take them out, let them cool for a couple minutes just so that they're cool enough to touch, but you still want them to be warm. Dip them in powdered sugar, put them back on the baking sheet, let them rest for about 20 minutes, then dip them in the powdered sugar again. What's going to happen is the powdered sugar is going to melt and kind of dissolve onto the outer layer of the cookie, creating like a really sticky outer layer. And then when you go in the second time to put more powdered sugar on, that second layer is going to stick even more. Like it's going to be super, I mean, you can see it's like really powdered sugary. That's it. Then you're done. Then you just let them cool and then you can enjoy those. The next cookie is my famous chocolate chip cookies. Those convection 350 for about 15 to 18 minutes in the oven. Bring them out of the oven, immediately sprinkle them with flaky sea salt, and then let them cool, and that's it. And then the next one is the peppermint fudgy brownie cookies. These little guys, oh, they're so cute. I might make my next batch when I go to actually make them for Christmas. I might make them a little bigger, but I thought these were so cute. They didn't spread very much. And remember, this is one of the new ones that I made, but they have this beautiful crack on the top, like a crinkle cookie. So cute. So you bake them 350 for 10 minutes, I believe it was, and then immediately sprinkle them with the peppermint candies, the crushed up candy canes. I liked to just kind of very gently press down the crushed up candy canes just so that they stayed on. The top of the cookie didn't look very sticky, and that might be because I froze them and then defrosted the dough. I don't know. But if you're doing the same thing, I would maybe just press the candies in there pretty well. But they stick on pretty well. Okay, and then the last one that I made today are these shortbread cookies. These look incredible. Okay, couple things with this. I'm not sure what went wrong. I was able to salvage it, but a few tips or just suggestions, maybe things to think about. If you're going to make these shortbread cookies, it's the salted chocolate chunk shortbread. She says in her recipe to not cut the chocolate too thin. She said you want kind of bigger chunks because you don't want just like chocolate shards in the cookie. And I think she was avoiding the whole cookie becoming just like brown, like chocolate brown. She wanted these beautiful chunks in there, which are so beautiful. I think I overcorrected and I did the chunks maybe a little too big because when I went to cut the log of dough, it just kind of like started to crumble, and it was because the chocolate chunks, like my knife was having a hard time getting through the chocolate chunks, and so then it was making like the dough come off with it. But it was fine. I just had to kind of press the chocolate chunks that fell off back onto the dough and form it into this round shape a couple times, which is totally fine. They turned out perfectly beautiful nonetheless. But what I would do is I might have needed to let the dough log thaw at room temperature a little longer. And so all I did was I pulled out the log of dough early this morning and I let it defrost at room temperature for a few hours. I maybe would have let it defrost overnight in the fridge and then pulled it out for the few hours before I went to cut it. That, or having a really sharp knife. If you have like an extremely sharp knife, then that would solve that problem too. Oh, I forgot to say, so for the chocolate chip cookies, those are the same as the pecan meltaways, where you can just take them out of the freezer and let them defrost for a few minutes before you bake them. The peppermint brownie cookies, I pulled that out along with the log of shortbread, so a few hours before. And it was pretty hard, but I was able to scoop it just fine. That is what you do on baking day. Of course, if you make different cookies, it's all gonna vary, but you'll learn. Some cookies are going to be better when they're frozen in the dough form. Some are going to be better when they're frozen as a baked cookie. So you can just play around with it and figure it out. I promise you, people are going to eat them regardless. Alright guys, well thank you so much for watching this video on how to meal prep freezer cookies for the Christmas season or any season. I have had cookies in my freezer. Actually, I just got rid of the last batch of cookies that I made last year. I had way too many cookies prepped, and so I just baked my last batch from last Christmas season. It's November right now, and so they lasted that long and they were so delicious, like you would never know. So even if you just want to do this throughout the year to have some yummy treats, or maybe you want to make an entire batch of cookies but you don't want to eat an entire batch of cookies, you can just pop a couple out, once a week, and just you and your family can just have a cookie. And you don't have to have the entire dozen. So that's another good idea. So if you are doing this though for Christmas, then it's the perfect way to avoid having all the stress around making all different kinds of cookies, the day before Christmas or whenever you need them. So I hope that you found this video helpful, and please go check out Adeline's Christmas cookie video too. Thank you so much for watching. This is Kiri with Healthfully Rooted Home.